We're off to a good start when I forgot to put the sound on. Beautiful. I can create highlight videos. This is too much. I didn't even check the sound. We're back to basics when I didn't even check the sound. Let's see if I can check myself here. Oh, I can hear myself. Okay, yeah, well, let's just get into it. If I can hear myself, let's just get right into it after adjusting some things. Let's see, so we got a beautiful picture of Locke's face here. We've got Johannes. Did you know his real name was not John, but Johannes? An essay concerning human understanding in 4 books. We have to read 4. I haven't read like one book in the last year, but we're endeavoring to read 4 books here. Written by John Locke, Gentleman, the 14th edition, Volume 1, Ecclesiastes 6:5. As thou knowest not what is the way of the Spirit, nor how the bones do grow in the womb of her that is with child, even so thou knowest not the works of God who maketh all things. Quam bellum est velle consitere potius nescire quod nescias, quam ista effutientem nauseare atque ipsum sibi displicere. Cicero De Nature De Ordinum, something like that. Published in London, 1753. We're off to a great start here. We've got some beautiful flowers, or whatever that represents. To the Right Honorable Thomas, Earl of Pembroke and Montgomery, Baron Herbert, Lord Ross, St. Quentin, Lord President of His Majesty's Most Honorable Privy Council, and Lord Lieutenant of the County of Wilts and of South Wales. My lord, this treatise which is grown up under your lordship's eye and has ventured into the world by your order does now by a natural kind of right come to your lordship for that protection which you several years since promised it. 'Tis not that I think any name, how great soever, set at the beginning of a book will be able to cover the faults that are to be found in it. Things in print must stand and fall by their own worth or the reader's fancy, but there being nothing more to be desired for truth than a fair, unprejudiced hearing, nobody is more likely to procure me that than your lordship, who are allowed to have got so intimate an acquaintance with her in her more retired recesses. Your lordship is known to have so far advanced your speculations in the most abstract and general knowledge of things beyond the ordinary reach or common methods, that your allowance and approbation of the design of this treatise will at least preserve it from being condemned without reading, and will prevail to have those parts a little weighed, which might otherwise perhaps be thought to deserve no consideration for being somewhat out of the common road. The imputation of novelty is a terrible charge amongst those who judge of men's heads, as they do of their perukes, don't know what perukes is, by the fashion, and can allow none to be right, but the received doctrines. Truth scarce ever yet carried it by vote anywhere its first appearance. New opinions are always suspected and I think that means usually opposed, without any other reason, but because they are not already common. But truth, like gold, is not the less so for being newly brought out of the mine. 'Tis trial and examination must give it price, and not any antique fashion. And though it be not yet current by the public stamp, yet it may, for all that, be as old as nature, and is certainly not the less genuine. Your lordship can give great and convincing instances of this, wherever you please to oblige the public with some of those large and comprehensive discoveries you have made of truths hitherto of known, unless to some few from whom your lordship has been pleased not wholly to conceal them. This alone were a sufficient reason, were there no other, why I should dedicate this essay to your lordship, and its having some little correspondence with some parts of that nobler and vast system of the sciences your lordship has made so new, exact, and instructive a draught of. I think it glory enough, if your lordship permit me to boast, that here and there I have fallen into some thoughts not wholly different from yours. If your lordship think fit that by your encouragement this should appear in the world, I hope it may be a reason some time or other to lead your lordship farther, and you will allow me to say that you give the world an earnest of something that, if they can bear with this, will be truly worth their expectation. This, my lord, shows what a present I here make to your lordship, just such as the poor man does to his rich and great neighbor, by whom the basket of flowers or fruit is not ill taken, though he has more plenty of his own growth and in much greater perfection. Worthless things receive a value when they are made the offerings of respect, esteem, and gratitude. These you have given me so mighty and peculiar reasons to have, in the highest degree, for your lordship, that if they can add a price to what they go along with, proportionate to their own greatness, I can with confidence brag, I here make your lordship the richest present you have ever received. This I am sure, I am under the greatest obligations to seek all occasions to acknowledge a long train of favors I have received from your lordship, favors though great and important in themselves, yet made much more so by the forwardness, concern, and kindness and other obliging circumstances that never failed to accompany them. To all this you are pleased to add that which gives yet more weight and relish to all the rest. You vouchsafe to continue me in some degrees of your esteem, and allow me a place in your good thoughts. I had almost said friendship. This, my lord, your words and actions do constantly show on all occasions, even to others when I am absent, that it is not vanity in me to mention what everybody knows, but it would be want of good manners not to acknowledge what so many are witnesses of, and every day tell me I am indebted to your lordship for. I wish they could as easily assist my gratitude as they convince me of your great and growing engagements it has to your lordship. This I am sure I shall write of the understanding without having any, if I were not extremely sensible of them and did not lay hold on this opportunity to testify the world how much I am obliged to be, and how much I am, my lord, your lordship's most humble and most obedient servant, John Locke, written in the Dorset Court, 24th of May, 1689. So that is interesting. We will go to the chat. I feel like liberalism has more interesting figures than this meme of a man. Well, you should point them out to me, and maybe we'll read them next. A peruke is an old wig. In true liberal fashion, you should have picked up a modern version of the book. I have fallen into some thoughts. This is hard to listen to. What a dedicated simp. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that I just briefly glanced at the wiki, and the wiki told me that in this book, John Locke is going to be explaining how we're all blank slate, tabula rasa, no innate characteristics, which apparently that was the position of the rationalist. Apparently that was the position of... funny comments. Apparently that was the position of Descartes and people like Leibniz, who said that we do have innate characteristics within our brain. We are innately predisposed toward one thing or another. We have these a priori notions, as opposed to the empiricism of Locke. He's going to say everything is a posteriori, everything is a product of experience. There is nothing contained within the brain that is prior to experience, which is kind of an interesting, we could go into that, we could argue that. I'm sure we're gonna do that as we go along. But I mean, there you could make an argument there that the only sense in which we have a priori experience is from our DNA, and the DNA is a product of evolutionary experience over time. So in a sense, you're getting at a kind of like rigorous materialism if you want to continue to defend John Locke. But what's really interesting here is the way that he despite the fact that he is bringing forth a treatise that is antithetical to the aristocratic idea, that's antithetical to the kind of hereditarian warrior caste that had ruled Europe for a very long time. He's coming out, he's saying, essentially, if you read between the lines, that's all nonsense. Really, anyone can be anything. It's just a product of experience. If that's the case, then really what matters about the aristocracy is their manners, their education, their upbringing, not their bloodline, not their ancestry, not their breeding, not who the father and the mother are, but it's what is the education, what is the upbringing, what is the manners. So this is an interesting thing that he has to simp so hard for this aristocrat while saying these very anti-aristocratic things on a deep level. I think of Locke as a political theorist, and here we're trying to get into his philosophy and see where politics and philosophy do overlap, and they are not independent of one another. Okay, it's hard to listen to, but with every second that passes, my progress toward becoming a big brain centrist advances. Yes. We've got some more beautiful artwork here. What are these symbols? Like some little circles, some like feathery wings. We will be leaving the stream in the next hour or so, but I thought I would just get in some Locke here. Just do it, as Shia LaBeouf says. The epistle to the reader. Reader, here put into thy hands what has been the diversion of some of my idle and bevy hours. Let's see if we can make this a little bit bigger. I want to zoom in a bit. I want to make it slightly larger. We're probably going to have to adjust some of the size here. Is that good? No, we are too squeezed. We are too squozen. Need to do this. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if I have enough space for my face. Is there a Control Z? Is there a backwards button, or do I just drag myself over there? Okay. Remind myself not to mess with this anymore. Here we are, reader. Put here into thy hands. We already read that. If it has the good luck to prove so of any one of thine, and thou hast, I feel like this is a lot more formal. I feel like we're seeing a lot more thous and thines than we were before, which is ironic. Before I was like, wow, this is easy, this is modern English. Now we're getting into the thou hast. I don't know about this. I'm going to need a neck crack to get through some of this. Oh, Mr. Locke. Oh, crack everything. Thou hast but half so much pleasure in reading as I had in writing it. Thou wilt as little think thy money as I do my pains ill bestowed. Mistake not this for a commendation of my work, nor conclude, because I was pleased with the doing of it, that therefore I am fondly taken with it now it is done. He that balks at larks and sparrows, I don't know if that's hawks or box, has no less sport, though a much less considerable quarry, than bee that flies at nobler game, and he is little acquainted with the subject of this treatise, the understanding, who does not know that as it is the most elevated faculty of the soul, so it is employed with a greater and more constant delight than any of the other. Its searches after truth are a sort of hawking and hunting, wherein the very pursuit makes a great part of the pleasure. So there's a little bit of, the journey. The goal is the journey. Every step the mind takes in its progress towards knowledge makes some discovery. Let's do a little slight adjustment here. Make some discovery which is not only new, but the best too for the time at least. For the understanding, like the eye, judging of objects only by its own sight, cannot but be pleased with what it discovers, having less regret for what has escaped it because it is unknown. Thus be who has raised himself above the alms basket and not content to live lazily on scraps of begged opinions, sets his own thoughts on work to find and follow truth, will, whatever be lights on, not miss the hunter's satisfaction. Every moment of this pursuit will reward his pains with some delight, and will have reason to think his time not ill spent, even when B cannot. I think the he's and the be's look similar. Let's say, even when he cannot much boast of any great acquisition. So Locke is explaining why this is not a waste of time, and why, even though it's painful, we will get a hunter's satisfaction. This, reader, is the entertainment of those who let loose their own thoughts and follow them in writing, which thou oughtest not to envy them, since they afford thee an opportunity of the like diversion, if thou wilt make something of thy own thoughts in reading. Use of thy own thoughts in reading. 'Tis to them, if they are thy own, that I refer myself, but if they are taken upon trust from others, 'tis no great matter what they are. They are not following truth, but some meaner confederation, and 'tis not worthwhile to be concerned what he says or thinks, who says or thinks only as he is directed by another. So Locke is explaining why we shouldn't just take some Wikipedia summary of Locke. We gotta really dig into this by ourselves. If thou judgest for thyself, I know thou wilt judge candidly, and then I shall not be harmed or offended, whatever be thy censure. For though it be certain that there is nothing in this treatise of the truth whereof I am not fully persuaded, yet I consider myself as liable to mistakes as I can think thee, and know that this book must stand or fall with thee, not by any opinion I have of it, but thy own. If thou findest little in it new or instructive to thee, thou art not to blame me for it. It was not meant for those that had already mastered this subject and made a thorough acquaintance with their own understanding, but for my own information and the satisfaction of a few friends who acknowledge themselves not to have sufficiently considered it. Were it fit to trouble thee with the history of this essay, I should tell thee that 5 or 6 friends meeting at my chamber, just hanging out, just chilling, and discoursing, and discoursing on a subject very remote from this, found themselves quickly at a stand by the difficulties that rose on every side. After we had a while puzzled ourselves without coming any nearer to a resolution of those doubts which perplexed us, it came into my thoughts that we took a wrong course, and that before we set ourselves upon inquiries of that nature, it was necessary to examine our own abilities and see what objects our understandings were, or were not, fitted to deal with. This I propose to the company, who all readily assented. I think this is assented or something like this. And thereupon it was agreed that this should be our first enquiry. Some hasty and undigested thoughts on a subject I had never before considered, which I set down against our next meeting, gave the first entrance into this discourse, which having been thus begun by chance, was continued by entreaty, written by incoherent parcels, and after long intervals of neglect, resumed again as my humor or occasions permitted, and at last in a retirement where an attendance on my health gave me leisure, it was brought into that order thou now seest it. This continued way of writing may have occasioned, besides others, two contrary faults, viz-a-vis that too little and that too much said in it. If thou find it, I don't know what that is. If thou find anything wanting, I shall be glad. Oh, if thou findest anything wanting, I shall be glad that what I have writ gives thee any desire, that I should have one farther. If it seems too much to thee, thou mayst blame the subject. For when I first put pen to paper, I thought all I should have to say on this matter would have been contained in one sheet of paper, but the farther I went, the larger prospect I had. New discourses led me still on, and it grew insensibly to the bulk it now appears in. I will not deny, but possibly it might be reduced to a narrower compass than it is, and that some paris of it, or some parts of it, might be contracted the way it has been written by catches, and many long intervals of interruption being apt to cause some repetitions. But to confess the truth, I am now too lazy or too busy to make it shorter. Wow. Locke is like, so basically, I just repeat myself a bunch of times. It's probably not really edited well, but I am too lazy or busy to make it shorter. Jeez, Locke. The thought of hunting and killing animals makes John rock. Oh, yeah, I guess he has that warrior spirit, right? Imagine having an 18th century attention span. John Locke be like, guns, booze, and boobs. Take that. Lord Tards, big brain Loki. It's hard not to get into that musical Anglo aristocrat way of speaking. Read Old Latin. We should talk in Old English. Instead of Latin, we should talk in Old English to scare away normies. What's the rule for using the integral sign? Integral is S sound, while S is the Z sound. No, S is not the Z sound. S is the S sound. You use the integral sign for S unless it is a double S or if it's an S at the beginning of a word. So here we see sloth is a regular S, and then we see, I'll highlight that for everybody. We've got sloth, regular S at the beginning, and then itself has the integral S in the middle. Oh, I guess so also has it. Now I'm contradicting myself. So same. Okay, so the S at the front can be an integral if it's a capital letter. For sloth, I guess, is a sin, so it's capitalized. So there's the S. And if there's two S's in a row, then it's integral S and then lowercase s. Anyway, I don't think there's any Z's. I am not ignorant how little I berine. I don't know what that is. How I herein. The B's and H look the same. How little I herein consult my own reputation when I knowingly let it go with a fault so apt to disgust the most judicious, who are always the nicest readers. But they who know sloth is apt to content itself with any excuse will pardon me if mine has prevailed on me where I think I have a very good one. I will not therefore allege in my defense that the same notion, having the different respects, may be convenient or necessary to prove, and I guess here we have a double integral, or necessary to prove or illustrate. Maybe it's correct. Maybe the small s is a z. We'll check it out. Necessary to prove or illustrate several parts of the same discourse, and that so it has happened in many parts of this, but waiving that, I shall frankly avow that I have sometimes dwelt long upon the same argument and expressed it different ways, with a different design. I pretend not to publish this essay for the information of men of large thoughts and quick apprehensions, to such masters of knowledge. I profess myself a scholar, and therefore warned them beforehand not to expect anything here, but what, being spun out of my own coarse thoughts, is fitted to men of my own size, to whom perhaps it will not be unacceptable that I have taken some pains to make plain and familiar to their thoughts some truths which established prejudice or the abstractness of the ideas themselves might render difficult. Some objects had need to be turned on every side, and when the notion is new, as I confess some of these are to me, or out of the ordinary road, as I suspect they will appear to others, 'tis not one simple view of it that will gain it admittance into every understanding, or fix it there with a clear and lasting impression. There are a few, I believe, who have not observed in themselves or others that what in one way of proposing was very obscure, another way of expressing it has made very clear and intelligible, though afterwards the mind found little difference in the phrases, and wondered why one failed to be understood more than the other. But everything does not hit alike upon every man's imagination. We have our understandings no less different than our palates, and be that thinks the same truth shall be equally relished by everyone. In the same dress may as well hope to feast everyone with the same sort of cookery. The meat may not be the same and the nourishment good, or the meat may be the same and the nourishment good, yet everyone not be able to receive it with that seasoning, and it must be dressed another way if you will have it go down with some even of strong constitutions. The truth is, those who have advised me to publish it advised me for this reason to publish it as it is, and since I have been brought to let it go abroad, I desire it should be understood by whoever gives himself to the pains to read it. I have so little affection to be in print that if I were not flattered, this essay might be of some use to others, as I think it has been to me. I should have confined it to the view of some friends who gave the first occasion to it. My appearing therefore in print being on purpose to be as useful as I may, I think it necessary to make what I have to say as easy and intelligible to all sorts of readers as I can, and had much rather the speculative and quick-sighted should complain of my being in some parts tedious, than that anyone not accustomed to abstract speculations or prepossessed with different notions should mistake or not comprehend any meaning. So he starts off saying, I'm not very smart, I'm not a big thinker, and I'm kind of just like throwing my ideas out there, and he's saying, I'm going to repeat myself over and over again because I'm trying to speak kind of to the lowbrow rather than the highbrow. It will possibly be censured as a great piece of vanity or insolence in me to pretend to instruct this, our knowing age, it amounting to little less when I owe that I publish this essay with hopes it may be useful to others. But if it may be permitted to speak freely of those who with a feigned modesty condemn as useless what they themselves write, methinks it favors much more of vanity or insolence to publish a book for any other end, and he fails very much of that respect he owes the public, who prints and consequently expects men should read that wherein he intends not they should meet with anything of use to themselves or others. And should nothing else be found allowable in this treatise, yet my design will not cease to be so, and the goodness of my intention ought to be some excuse for the worthlessness of my present. 'Tis that chiefly which secures me from the fear of censure, which I expect not to escape more than better writers. Men's principles, notions, and relishes are so different that it is hard to find a book which pleases or displeases all men. I acknowledge the age we live in is not the least knowing, and therefore not the most easy to be satisfied. If I have not the good luck to please, yet nobody ought to be offended with me. I plainly tell all my readers, except half a dozen, this treatise was not at first intended for them, and therefore they need not be at the trouble to be of that number. But yet, if anyone thinks fit to be angry or rail at it, he may do it securely, for I shall find some better way of spending my time than in such kind of conversation. I shall always have the satisfaction to have aimed sincerely at truth and usefulness, though in one of the meanest ways. The commonwealth of learning is not at this time without master builders, whose mighty designs in advancing the sciences will leave lasting monuments to the admirations of posterity. So this is the term master builders kind of sounds like Freemasons to me. Was Locke a Freemason? Tell me, Locke, Freemason. Actually, let's open up a new guy here. Is this going to switch over? Locke, Freemason. I don't want to mess that up. Locke and Masonry. Locke was a Freemason. Okay, there's no proof. Who are the Masons? John Locke. John Locke was probably a Freemason, right? I mean, can we agree on that? Can we come to agree John Locke probably a Freemason? Okay. But everyone must not hope to be a Boyle or a Sydenham, and in an age that produces such masters as the great Hugenius and the incomparable Mr. Newton, with some other of that strain, 'tis ambition enough to be employed as an under-laborer in clearing the ground a little and removing some of the rubbish that lies in the way to knowledge, which certainly had been very much more advanced in the world if the endeavors of the ingenious and industrious men had not been much cumbered with the learned but frivolous use of uncouth, affected, or unintelligible terms, introduced into the sciences, and there made an art of, to that degree, that philosophy, which is nothing but the true knowledge of things, which was thought unfit or incapable to be brought into the well-bred company and polite conversation. Vague and insignificant forms of speech and abuse of language have so long passed for mysteries of sciences, and hard and misapplied words with little or no meaning have by prescription such a right to be mistaken for deep learning and height of speculation that it will not be easy to persuade either those who speak or those who hear them that they are but the covers of ignorance and hindrance of true knowledge. So he's saying if you use big words, big words are the covers of ignorance and hindrance of true knowledge. We should speak plainly. Okay, I might not be following Locke's advice here. To break in upon the sanctuary of vanity and ignorance will be, I suppose, some service to human understanding, though so few are apt to think they deceive or are deceived in the use of words. I gotta move myself a little bit over here. Use of words, or that the language of the sect thereof has any faults in it which ought to be examined or corrected, that I hope I shall be pardoned if I have in the third book dwelt long on this subject, and endeavored to make it so plain that neither the inveterateness of the mischief nor the prevalency of the fashion shall be any excuse for those who will not take care about the meaning of their words and will not suffer the significancy of their expressions to be inquired into. I have been told that a short... Oh dear, some alarm is going off somewhere. One of the alarms. Okay, well that shows you I have less than an hour left. Let's, since we have an alarm, I guess that's time to check the chat. We've got desire was spelt with the integral. Ken pronounced it with the Z, desire pronunciation. Okay, well, you might have proven your point. You might be correct. I might have to accept the things that you're saying right now. And I'm getting some disturbing... Something disturbing is happening in my periphery. I'm just trying to shut off an alarm at the moment. There we go. That's why I sometimes prefer American spelling. Recognize feels more natural than recognize. This is autistic ramblings. Locke is ridiculous. Locke was exactly as he described. Can we just skip the introduction, go to chapter 1? The introduction is interesting for character analysis. He has become one of those master builders of contemporary thought. This is a superior spelling method. He reads like a gentleman. Good sir, milady, W? Let's take a W. I think I've earned this W. Man. We have 18 live viewers, 6 likes. I mean, I won't say this is the best thing I've ever done. But that is impressive. That is impressive compared to a regular stream where I'm like talking about politics or something that makes sense. Okay, let's just jump back into it. I have been told that a short... Is that where I left off? The excuse, the meaning of the words, the expressions. I have been told that a short epitome of this treatise, which was printed in 1688, was by some condemned without reading it because innate ideas were denied in it. They too hastily concluding that if innate ideas were not supposed, there would be little left, either of the notion or proof of spirits. If anyone take the like offense at the entrance of this treatise, I shall desire him to read it thorough, and then I hope he will be convinced that the taking away false foundations is not to the prejudice but advantage of the truth, which is never injured or endangered so much as when mixed with or built on falsehood. In the second edition I added as followeth. The bookseller will not forgive me if I say nothing of this second edition, which he has promised by the correctness of it shall make amends for the many faults committed in the former. He desires too that it should be known that it has one whole new chapter concerning identity, and many additions and amendments in other places. These, I must inform my reader, are not all new matter, but most of them either farther confirmation, I think it really should mean further, either further confirmations of what I said, or explications to prevent others being mistaken in the sense of what was formerly printed, and not any variation in me from it. I must only accept the alteration I have made in Book 2, Chapter 21. What I had there writ concerning liberty and the will, I thought deserved as accurate a view as I was capable of. Those subjects having in all ages exercised the learned part of the world with questions and difficulties that have not a little perplexed morality and divinity, those parts of knowledge that men are most concerned to be clear in. Upon a closer inspection into the working of men's minds and a stricter examination of those motives and views they are turned by, I have found reason somewhat to alter the thoughts I formerly had concerning that which gives the last determination to the will in all voluntary actions. This I cannot forbear to acknowledge to the world with as much freedom and readiness as I first published what then seemed to be right, thinking myself more concerned to quit and renounce any opinion of my own than oppose that of another when truth appears against it. For 'tis truth alone I seek, and that will always be welcome to me, when or for whence soever it comes. But what forwardness soever I have to resign any opinion I have, or to recede from anything I have writ, upon the first evidence of any error in it, yet this I must own, that I have not had the good luck to receive any light from those expectations I have met with in print against any part of my book, nor have from anything has been urged against it, found reason to alter my sense, and any of the points have been questioned. Whether the subject I have in hand requires often more thought and attention than cursory readers, at least such as are prepossessed, are willing to allow, or whether any obscurity in my expressions casts a cloud over it, and these notions are made difficult to others' apprehension in way of treating them. So it is that my meaning I find is often mistaken, and I have not the good luck to be everywhere rightly understood. There are so many instances of this that I think it justice to my reader and myself to conclude that either my book is plainly enough written to be rightly understood by those who peruse it with that attention and indifferency which everyone who will give himself the pains to read ought to employ in reading, or else that I have writ mine so obscurely that it is in vain to go about to mend it. Whichever of these be the truth. So it's like either this is so extremely obscure that there's no point in trying to make this any clearer, or it's so clear that it literally could not be made any more clear. There's no middle ground with Locke. He's an extremist. And we have to get these extremists, we have to get them out of our society. Okay, whichever be the truth of these be the truth. 'Tis myself only am affected thereby, and therefore I shall be far from troubling my reader with what I think might be said in answer to those several objections I have met with to passages here and there of my book, since I persuade myself that he who thinks them of moment enough to be concerned, whether they are true or false, will be able to see that what is said is either not well founded or else not contrary to my doctrine, when I and my opposer come both to be well understood. If any, careful that none of their good thoughts should be lost, have published their censures of my essay. So here censures doesn't mean censorship, but it means opposition. With this honor done to it, that they will not suffer it to be an essay, I leave it to the public to value the obligation they have to their critical pens, and shall not waste any reader's time in so idle or ill-natured an employment of mine as to lessen the satisfaction anyone has in himself or gives to others in so hasty a confutation. I think that's like a refutation, a confutation of what I have written. The booksellers preparing for the 4th edition of my essay gave me notice of it, that I might, if I had leisure, make any additions or alterations I should think fit, whereupon I thought it convenient to advertise the reader that besides several corrections I had made here and there was one alteration which it was necessary to mention, because it ran through the whole book, and is of consequence to be rightly understood. What I thereupon laid was this: clear and distinct ideas are terms which, though familiar and frequent in men's mouths, I have reason to think everyone who uses does not perfectly understand. And possibly 'tis but here and there one who gives himself the trouble to consider them so far as to know what he himself or others precisely mean by them. I have therefore in most places chose to determinate or determined instead of clear and distinct, as more likely to direct men's thoughts to my meaning in this matter. By those denominations I mean some object in the mind, and consequently determined, i.e., such as it is there seen and perceived to be. This I think may fitly be called a determinate or determined idea, when such as it is at any time objectively in the mind, and so determined there it is annexed, and without variation determined to a name or articulate sound, which is to be steadily the sign of that very same object of the mind or determinate idea. Woo! Okay, we're doing it. Redditors are feral facsimiles of civilization. Hast thou e'en read Locke, sir? Whomsoever refrain from doing so shall be ridiculed. This is the second best thing you've done after your masterful analysis of Pokemon. See, I mean, people agree. I just keep getting better. You know, why would I ever? Why would I ever? I should just delete every video that's more than a week old because it's by now it's terrible compared to this stuff. I do take offense, my good sir. We did it, guys. We have read Loki. John Locke is going to dismantle the gender identity binary in this brand new exclusive chapter. Tabula rasa doesn't seem obviously compatible to me with pre-societal individuals doing a social contract. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see where the origin of these objects come from. People shouldn't be shamed for not reading Locke. They should be shamed for not reading about Rousseau's onanism. ASMR stream, this is tragic. Okay, well, something that I am reading here is this idea that there are objects in the mind called ideas. And I'm kind of imagining like an old-timey Newtonian model where like the mind is like is an ice rink or something, and you have these ideas, little hockey pucks, and they're just swimming around in the mind. Whereas, I mean, the way we think of ideas now is the process. It's a pattern. It's a wave. It's something that is not like a fixed object. It's not like a particle, but it's actually the idea itself is some kind of a process. It's some kind of a doing. It's some kind of a verb rather than a noun. So that's the first problem I have with this reading here. Let's see if we can finish this second introduction. To explain this a little more particularly, by determinants when applied to a simple idea, I mean that simple appearance which the mind has in its view or perceives in itself when that idea is said to be in it. By determinants when applied to a complex idea, I mean such an one as consists of a determinate number of certain simple or less complex ideas joined in such a proportion and situation as the mind has before its view and sees in itself when the idea is present in it or should be present in it when a man gives a name to it. I say should be because it is not everyone, nor perhaps anyone, who is so careful of his language as to use no word till he views in his mind the precise determined idea which he resolves to make a sign of. The want of this is the cause of no small obscurity and confusion in men's thoughts and discourses. So, the idea, by determinate, he means a simple idea. By determinate, when applied to a complex idea, I mean such one as consists of a determinate number of certain simple ideas. So the idea is a simple idea, that such that the mind has it in its view or perceives in itself the idea is said to be in it. So it's like I guess there's this concept of irreducibility of an idea. The idea is so simple. It's like the color red. It's so simple you can't deconstruct it. It's not a complex idea. It is the idea in itself as an object, and complex ideas are made up of more simple ideas. So the red fire truck, well, it's red. That's a simple idea. The truck, well, that's a complex idea because a truck has wheels, a truck has axles, a truck has an engine, a truck has speed, a truck has potential velocity, acceleration, turning power, steering wheel. Someone's driving the truck. And then not only is it a truck, but it's also a fire truck. It's got all this equipment to put out fires. So red fire truck is actually quite a complex idea. And really, there's only these very simple ideas that we can break down and understand as objects. And in a sense, these complex ideas are like machines that are constructed within the mind that we think of as something complex. Although that's not typically how I think of it. When I hear the word red, it is a color, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of mysterious. What is the mechanism by which we are able to conceptualize this redness? Where does this redness, what is this redness? It's such a mysterious thing. Whereas a truck, it's like, oh, that's some kind of everyday, pragmatic, red fire truck. It's something you can see, something you can touch, something you can feel, something you can drive. You can interact with it in a visceral way. I can't interact with redness in a visceral way. So redness to me seems to be more complicated, more abstract, more mysterious than a red fire truck. Though in Locke's view, the red fire truck, from what I'm reading here, it seems the red fire truck would be a complex idea, whereas the color red would be a simple idea. And basically, he sounds a lot like Kurt Doolittle. He sounds a lot like, various people have tried to create these pure programming languages and simplistic languages where every word has an exact meaning. And he says something about language here, which is interesting. He says, language is often used without fully knowing the meaning of the words, whereas Locke would have it that we understand the meaning completely before we understand the words. So there's this concept. Locke believes that we should have a society in which the abstract meaning of things is determined before the social use of those things. Now, the opposite of that, of course, is, I would say, a more continental view that the social use of something in a pragmatic manner precedes the abstracted meaning, which is then projected onto that thing. We've got, and what made me happy, reading this, I'm imagining Locke as a toddler smashing toy horses going, boom, 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 toy horses. Yeah, that's funny. Locke's autistic, undecipherable ramblings, Henry VIII banging chicks. Well, Locke is actually very clear here. What he's saying is not undecipherable. I mean, maybe if you never read Shakespeare, or you're just not familiar with this, kind of older English, then maybe it's undecipherable. But I think what he's saying is actually pretty clear. He's kind of laboring over it, and as he says, he likes to repeat things, but it's not necessarily unclear. You know truth when you encounter it because it's obvious, pagans. Truth appears as a memory. You didn't come into this world, you came out of it. I don't know what any of that means, but let's do a little bit of reading. Let's see how far we can go. Let's see if we can beat this level. This guy is like, this is only the first boss. We're not even at the final boss yet. This is just like the first level of 99 levels. Okay, where are we? Something about ideas, determined ideas. Aha. I know there are not words enough in any language to answer all the variety of ideas that enter into men's discourses and reasonings, but this hinders not but that when anyone uses any term, he may have in his mind a determined idea, which he makes it the sign of, and to which he should keep it steadily annexed during that present discourse. Where he does not or cannot do this, he in vain pretends to clear or distinct ideas. 'Tis plain his are not so, and therefore there can be no expected nothing but obscurity and confusion, where such terms are made use of, which have not such a precise determination. Upon this ground I have thought determined ideas a way of speaking less liable to mistake than clear and distinct, and where men have got such determined ideas of all that they reason, inquire, or argue about, they will find a great part of their doubts and disputes at an end. The greatest part of the questions and controversies that perplex mankind, depending on the doubtful and uncertain use of words, or which is the same in determined ideas, which they are made to stand for, I have made choice of these terms to signify, 1. Some immediate object of the mind, which it perceives and has before it, distinct from the sound it uses as a sign of it, and 2. That this idea thus determined, i.e. which the mind has in itself, and knows, and sees there, be determined without any change to that name, and that name determined to that precise idea. If men had such determined ideas in their enquiries and discourses, they would both discern how far their own enquiries and discourses went, and avoid the greatest part of the disputes and wranglings they have with others. So Locke is basically saying, we got to be clear about our definitions. Otherwise, if we don't know what we're talking about, if we say, I stand for democracy, and someone else is like, well, I stand for democracy too. And then they're like, well, this is not democratic. And he says, I disagree. You're the democracy destroyer. It's like, well, maybe the issue that they have is that they're not clearly defining democracy. And so when they both say, well, I am correct about, I'm the true Democrat, you're the true Democrat, they're not really defining that idea democracy thoroughly enough in order to be able to work through what is their exact disagreement. And when they actually get at the core of what their real disagreement is, then they might find that they are able to overcome their disagreement. And the problem with this, I think, is the problem of authority. When we talk about empiricism, where are we getting our data from? In the social sphere, in the political sphere, we're getting it from authority. We can't, unlike science, we can't conduct a direct experiment which doesn't require some higher authority. It merely requires our own observation. In the political sphere, religious sphere, empiricism doesn't really seem to work, in my opinion. The idea of constructing religion empirically without authority seems problematic. Now, you can do it once you have authority settled, then we can start getting into empiricism. But the problem of authority, I don't think, can be solved with empiricism itself, except in the realm of direct observation. Back to Mr. Locke. Back to Mr. Locke. Besides this, the bookseller will think it necessary I should advertise the reader that there is an edition of 2 chapters wholly new, and the one of the association of ideas, the other of enthusiasm. These, with some other larger editions never before printed, he has engaged to print by themselves after the same manner and for the same purpose as was done when this essay had the second impression. In the 5th edition, there is very little added or altered. The greatest part of what is new is contained in the 21st chapter of the 2nd book. Oh my goodness, 21 chapters of the 2nd book, and there are 4 books. There's literally going to be 99 chapters, which anyone, if he thinks it worthwhile, may, with a very little labor, transcribe into the margin of the former edition. The contents. It's a little S there. Book 1 of Innate Notions. The introduction, no innate speculative principles, no innate practical principles, other considerations about innate principles, both speculative and practical. Book 2 of ideas in general, of simple ideas, of ideas of one sense, of solidity, of simple ideas by more than one sense, of simple ideas of reflection, of simple ideas both of sensation and reflection, other considerations concerning simple ideas of perception, of retention, of discerning, of complex ideas, of space and its simple modes, of duration and expansion considered together, of number, of infinity, of other simple modes, of the modes of thinking, of the modes of pleasure and pain, of power, of mixed modes, of the complex ideas of substances, of the collective ideas of substances, of relation, of cause and effect and other relations, of identity and diversity. That's an interesting chapter, right? Of other relations, of clear and distinct, obscure and confused ideas, of real and fantastical ideas, of adequate and inadequate ideas, of true and false ideas, of the association of ideas. Okay. Then we have sections under the chapter. I need to take a break. Locke is gonna give me a heart attack here. Come on. This is too much. This is way too much. I might have to make myself slightly smaller. Just so I can be here. Okay. Oh, you know what I can do? Let's see if I can do this. Advanced. Control. Zoom. Zoom out. Bada bing, bada boom. Beautissimo, my friend. Beautissimo. I mean, I don't know if that's perfect, but it's certainly something, right? Certainly something. Okay. I'm going to take a drink. Okay. Society needs nurture its geniuses that might be graced by more works of this supreme caliber. I want the whole discourse of civilization to be positively flooded with Lockean prose. Locke believes we should have a society. It's the difference between focusing on the foreground or the background. One requires concentration, the other requires the opposite. Locke is simple, but he is agonizing. This is certainly progression from the Onion and even Pythagoras. Locke, the linguist, rewrite the book. Locke book, heavy like a grandfather clock book. Just read the spark notes, save the time. I, for one, appreciate the subtle humor of turning the imperative to read Locke into a reality. We will master Locke. Oh no, skipping pages. Gotta read the contents. If Locke was alive today, he would be somewhere in between Sam Harris and a primary school teacher. This is like a 900-page book, by the way, called an essay. Oh no, smallify thyself. 900 pages. This is what you get for reading. You'll need the dinosaur upgrade for the next bosses. They had all Adder back then. Okay, I don't know what Adder is. Adderall? Yeah, everyone was on Adderall, I guess. 22 viewers and 9 likes. Guys, this is like, we are at my usual popularity is like 25 concurrent viewers and like 6 likes at this point in the stream. What can I say? People like Locke. What can I say? People don't want to hear my takes on politics. You know, I think it's good when something happens. I think like when Iran happens or some kind of big scary thing happens, I think it's good to remark upon that. I think people like that. But maybe the daily news, like my Twitter feed, is not really what people want to hear. Maybe that's not what it's all about. Let's see if we can just get through the content. So we have these sections of Chapter 1, an inquiry into the understanding, pleasant, and useful design method. Useful to know the extent of our comprehension, our capacity, proportion to our state and concerns to discover things useful to us. Knowing the extent of our capacities will hinder us from useless curiosity, skepticism, and idleness. Occasion of this essay, what idea stands for. Chapter 2, no innate speculative principles. The way shewn how we come by any knowledge sufficient to prove it not innate. General assent, the great argument. Universal consent proves nothing innate. What is, and it is impossible for the same thing to be and not be, not universally assented to, not on the mind naturally imprinted because not known to children, idiots, etc., that men know when they come to the use of reason, answered, if reason discovered them, that would not prove them innate. 'Tis false that reason discovers them, the coming to the use of reason, not the time we come to know these maxims. By this they are not distinguished from other knowable truths. If coming to the use of reason were the time of their discovery, it would not prove them innate. The steps by which the mind attains several truths, assenting as soon as professed and understood, prove them not innate. If such an assent be a mark of innate, then that 1 and 2 are equal to 3, that sweetness is not bitterness, and that 1,000 the like must be innate. Such less general, is that proportions? Propositions known before these universal maxims, 1 and 2 equal to 2, or 1 and 1 equal to 2, etc., not general nor useful, answered. These maxims not being known sometimes till proposed, proves them not innate. Implicitly known before proposing signifies that the mind is capable of understanding them, or else signifies nothing. The argument of assenting on first hearing is upon a false supposition of no precedent teaching, not innate because not universally assented to, these maxims not the first known, and so not innate because they appear at least where what is innate shows itself clearest. Recapitulation. Chapter 3, no innate practical principles, section. No moral principles so clear and so generally received as the forementioned speculative maxims, faith and justice not owned as principles by all men, Objection, though men deny them in their practice, yet they admit them in their thoughts answered. Moral rules need a proof, ergo not innate. Oh, that's an interesting thing. Moral rules not being innate. Instance in keeping compacts. And this word innate, I mean, it's really tripping me up here, this word innate. What do we mean? Innateness in the sense of DNA? Or do we mean innateness in the sense of like God, like innate? Where is the substance of this innateness? That's an interesting discussion. Instance in keeping compacts, virtue generally approved, not because innate, but because profitable. Men's actions convince us that the rule of virtue is not their internal principle. Conscience, no proof of any innate moral rule. Instances of enormities practiced without remorse. Men have contrary practical principles. Whole nations reject several moral rules. Oh boy, that might be dicey. That's historical, okay? We're understanding Locke as a historical extremist, and we are chronicling bad ideas. We're exposing bad ideas. Those who maintain innate practical principles tell us not what they are. Lord Herbert's innate principles examined. Objective innate principles may be corrupted, answered. Contrary principles in the world, how men commonly come by their principles. Principles must be examined. Chapter 4, other considerations about innate principles, both speculative and practical. Principles not innate unless their ideas be innate. Ideas, especially those belonging to principles not born with children. Identity, an idea not innate. Whole and part, not innate ideas. Idea of worship, not innate. Idea of God, not innate. Suitable to God's goodness, that all men should have an idea of him, therefore naturally imprinted by him, answered. Ideas of God, various in different men. If the ideas of God be not innate, no other can be supposed innate. Idea of substance, not innate. No propositions can be innate, since no ideas are innate. No ideas are remembered till after they have been introduced. So that maybe goes to click except point. Principles not innate because of little use or little certainty. Difference of men's discoveries depends upon the different applications of their faculties. Men must think and know for themselves, whence the opinion of innate principles. And finally, the conclusion. Oh, but that was only book 1, by the way. Oh, but that was just book 1. So let's go to book 2. Book 2, chapter 1, of ideas in general. Idea is the object of thinking. All ideas come from sensation or reflection. The object of sensation and source of ideas, the operations of our minds, and other source of them. All our ideas are of the one or of these. Observable in children. Men are differently furnished with them according to the different objects they converse with. Ideas of reflection later because they need attention. The soul begins to have ideas when it begins to perceive. Well, that's interesting. The perception, empiricism, that empiricism and perception is prior to ideas themselves as objects. Although I think my refutation of this would be in the sexual realm, which would be very scandalous for Locke, that men do have an innate sense of the shape of women's bodies, that they do not need to be taught the shape of women's bodies. And the feminist would say, no, the men are shown women's bodies and they are taught which bodies are good or bad through implicit teaching. But I would argue that the animal kingdom has no need for this type of implicit teaching, that animals seek out bodies alike to their own kind without any kind of instruction, without any kind of education. An animal in the wild, an animal raised alone without its own kind, will come to be attracted to its own kind, as in the case of the peacock. The peacock is innately attracted to the feathers, the female is attracted to the feathers of the male, and that is not something that is taught necessarily. I suppose the counter-argument to my counter-argument would be something like the attraction of animals to humans who have been raised around humans. And also, perhaps you could say, mimetic fashion. The fashion of lingerie. Lingerie is not something genetically that we are attracted to, but we have been taught to be attracted to it. So, yeah, I'm just thinking of very primitive animals which have no capacity at all for holding ideas or conceptualizing or abstracting fashions, but which still seek out one another and mate with one another without any concept of ideas or the ability to hold ideas. The fact that animals have a sense of innateness, they have innate ideas within them, in a sense. They're not able to learn ideas by reason. The fact that we are evolved from animals implies that we also have innate ideas. So you'd sort of have to accept evolution. I don't know what Locke would think about evolution. The way in which he seems to maybe view animals as having innate ideas, whereas humans do not have innate ideas, might make him a bit of a creationist. We'll find out. We've got an insect. Okay, the soul begins to have ideas and begins to perceive. The soul thinks not always, for this wants proofs. It is not always conscious of it. If a sleeping man thinks without knowing it, the sleeping and waking man are two persons. My neck. Impossible to convince those that sleep without dreaming that they think, that men dream without remembering it, in vain urged. Upon this hypothesis, the thoughts of a sleeping man ought to be most rational. On this hypothesis, the soul must have ideas not derived from sensation or reflection, of which there is no appearance. If I think when I know it not, no body else can know it. How knows anyone that the soul always thinks? For if it be not a self-evident proposition, it needs proof. That a man should busy in thinking and yet not retain it in the next moment, very improbable. No ideas but from sensation or reflection evident if we observe children. In the reception of simple ideas, the understanding is most of all passive. I don't know what that means, like possible or something. Chapter 2 of Simple Ideas, Uncompounded Appearances. The mind can neither nor destroy them. Chapter 3, that's a short chapter. Chapter 3 of Ideas of One Sense. As colors of seeing, of sounds, of hearing, few simple ideas have names. Chapter 4 of Solidity. We receive this idea from touch. Solidity fills space, distinct from space. Hardness on solidity depends. Impulse, resistance, and protrusion, what it is. Chapter 5 of Simple Ideas by More Than One Sense. Chapter 6 of Simple Ideas of Reflection are the operations of the mind about its other ideas. The idea of perception, the idea of willing, we have from reflection. Chapter 7 of Simple Ideas, both of sensation and reflection, pleasure and pain, existence and unity, power, succession, simple ideas, the materials of all our knowledge. Chapter 8, other considerations concerning simple ideas, positive ideas from primitive causes, ideas in the mind, qualities in bodies, primary and secondary qualities, how primary qualities produce their ideas, how secondary ideas of primary qualities are resemblances of secondary not, reason of our mistake in this. Secondary qualities twofold. First, immediately imperceivable. Secondly, immediately perceivable. Chapter 9 of Perception. It is the first simple idea of reflection. Perception or preception is only when the mind receives the impression. Children, though they have ideas in the womb, have none innate. Which ideas first is not evident. That's interesting. Ideas in the womb have none innate. Well, that's going to be an interesting one. Ideas of sensation often changed by the judgment. Perception puts the difference between animals and inferior beings. Perception, the inlet of knowledge, of retention. Contemplation, memory, attention, repetition, pleasure and pain, fixed ideas. Ideas fade in the memory. Constantly repeated ideas can scarce be lost in remembering. The mind is often active. Two defects in the memory, oblivion and slowness. Brutes have memory of discerning, etc. No knowledge without it. This is chapter 11. The difference of wit and judgment. Clearness alone hinders confusion. Comparing, brutes compare but imperfectly. Compounding, brutes compound but little. Naming, abstraction, brutes abstract not. Idiots and madmen. Method, These are the beginnings of human knowledge. Appeal to experience. Dark room. Of complex ideas made, this is chapter 12, made by the mind out of simple ones, made voluntarily, are either modes, substances, or relations. Modes, simple and mixed modes. Substances, single or collective relation. The abstruse, what is this saying? It sounds like abstract, abstrusist. The abstrusist ideas from two sources. Chapter 13 of space and its simple modes. Simple modes, idea of space, space and extension, immensity, figure, place, extension, and body not the same. Substance, which we know not, no proof against space without body. What about a body without organs? Substances and accidents of little use in philosophy. I guess he'd be really against a body without organs. He seems to be all about the organs. A vacuum beyond the utmost bounds of body. The power of annihilation proves a vacuum. Motion proves a vacuum. Oh, I don't know about this vacuum. What about space-time? Is there such a thing as a true vacuum? The ideas of space and body distinct. Extension being inseparable from body proves not the same. Ideas of space and solidity distinct. Men differ little in clear, simple ideas. Of duration, chapter 14. Duration is fleeting extension, its idea from reflection on the train of our ideas. The idea of duration applicable to things whilst we sleep. The idea of succession not from motion. The train of ideas is a certain degree of quickness. This train, the measure of other successions. The mind cannot fix long on one invariable idea. Ideas, however made, include no sense of motion. Time is duration set out by measures. A good measure of time must divide its whole duration into equal parts. The revolutions of the sun and moon, the properest measures of time, but not by their motion, but periodical appearances. No two parts of duration can be certainly known to be equal. Time not the measure of motion. Minutes, hours, and years not necessary measures of duration. The measure of time, two ways applied, are measure of time applied to duration before time and eternity. Chapter 15, of duration and expansion considered together, both capable of greater and less. Expansion not bound by matter, nor duration by motion. Why men more easily admit infinite duration than infinite expansion. Time to duration is as place to expansion. I agree with that. Time and place are taken for so much of either as are set out by their existence and motion of bodies, sometimes for so much of either as we design by measure taken from the bulk or motion of bodies. They belong to all beings. All the parts of extension are extension, and all the parts of duration are duration. Their parts are inseparable. Duration is as a line, expansion as a solid. Okay, so we're using some geometry here. Duration has never two parts together, expansion altogether. Chapter 16, of number. Number, the simplest and most universal idea. Its modes made, we're getting Pythagorean now. Number, the most simple and universal idea. Its modes made by addition, each mode distinct, therefore demonstrations in numbers the most precise. Names necessary to numbers. Why children number not earlier. Numbers measures all measurables. Chapter, what is this? Chapter 7? I thought we were on chapter 15 or something. This was chapter 16. So shouldn't we be on like chapter 17? I think someone forgot an X there. I think someone forgot to put in the X. Anyway, I think this is chapter 17. They just forgot an X. That's okay. We'll get it in the next edition. Don't worry, Locke. There's always edition number 15, right? So chapter 17, infinity in its original intentions attributed to space, duration, and number. How we come by the idea of infinity, our idea of space, boundless, and so of duration, why other ideas are not capable of infinity. Difference between infinity of space and space infinite. We have no idea of infinite space. Number affords us the clearest idea of infinity. Interesting, yes. Well, I think we can have an idea of infinite space. I don't know about infinite time. Infinite time seems harder than infinite space to me. And what about the fourth dimension? What about beyond time and space, or the fifth dimension? Is there an infinity beyond mere space and time? This is my question. Can we think of such a thing? I see a W. I'm just going to take it. I'm going to take the W's that I can get. I'll take them. I should get a harness that's like sits on my shoulders, like a webcam in front of me. Rather than it's mounted in a fixed way, it should be like mounted on my body. Like one of those body cams, like when you're doing extreme sports. This is an extreme sport right now. This is an extreme sport. I gotta keep good form for this extreme sport, lest I be injured in this extreme sport. Okay. Our different conception of the infinity of number, duration, and expansion, infinite divisibility, no positive idea of infinite. What is positive, what negative in our idea of the infinite? Some think they have a positive idea of eternity and not space. Supposed positive idea of infinity, cause of mistakes, and these ideas from sensation and reflection. Chapter 18 of other simple modes, modes of motion, modes of thinking, sensation, remembrance, contemplation, the various attention of the mind in thinking. Hence probable that thinking is the action, not essence of the soul. Okay. What is the essence of the soul? Of modes of pleasure and pain. Pleasure and pain, simple ideas, good and evil. What? Our passions moved by good and evil, love, hatred, desire, joy, sorrow, hope, fear, despair, anger, envy. What passions all men have. Pleasure and pain. What? Shame. He just says, what? The instance to show how our ideas of the passions are got from sensation and reflection. Chapter 19 of power. Oh, here we go. This idea how got, power active and passive. Power includes relatives. The clearest idea of active power bad or had from spirit. Will and understanding, two powers, faculties. Whence the ideas of liberty and necessity. Liberty what? Supposes understanding and will. Belongs not to volition. Voluntary, opposed to involuntary, not to necessary. Liberty what? Necessity what? Liberty belongs not to the will, but to the agent or man. In respect of willing, a man is not free. Ooh, we're getting some Schopenhauer stuff here. Some Schopenhauer stuff. They're way before Schopenhauer's time. The will determined by something without it. Volition, what? What determines the will? Will and desire must not be confounded. I don't know about that. Uneasiness, or does that say uneasy? Uneasiness determines the will. Desire is uneasiness. Okay, the uneasiness of desire determines the will. Okay, this is the spring of action. The greatest positive good determines not the will, but uneasiness. Because the removal of uneasiness is the first step to happiness, because uneasiness alone is present, because all who allow the joys of heaven possible pursue them not, but a great uneasiness is never neglected. Desire accompanies all uneasiness. This is very Buddhist. The most pressing uneasiness naturally determines the will. All desire happiness. Happiness what? What God is desired, what not? Why the greatest good is not always desired. Why not being desired, it moves not the will. Due consideration raises desire. The power to suspend the prosecution of any desire makes way for consideration. To be determined by our own judgment is no restraint to liberty. The freest agents are so determined. A constant determination to a pursuit of happiness, no abridgment of liberty. I feel like the founders read this at some point. I'm getting some deja vu here. The necessity of pursuing true happiness, the foundation of all liberty. The reason of it, government of our passions, the right improvement of liberty. How men come to pursue different courses. How men come to choose ill. First, from bodily pains. Second, from wrong desires arising from wrong judgment. our judgment of present good or evil always right, from a wrong judgment of what makes a necessary part of their happiness, a more particular account of wrong judgment in comparing present and future causes of this, in considering consequences of actions, causes of this, wrong judgment of what is necessary to our happiness. We can change the agreeableness or disagreeableness in things, preference of vice to virtue, a manifest wrong judgment. Chapter 22 of mixed modes. What? Made by the mind, something got by the explication of their names. The name ties the parts of the mixed modes into one idea. Let's see, if I look over here and I look over there, I just realized I'm looking away from the text the whole time. My mistake. My bad, yo. Yo, my bad. I apologize. Didn't mean to be like that, you know? I wanted to look toward the text, right? So I should be looking over here. Wow. What a waste. Better late than never. Okay, the name ties the parts of the mixed modes into one idea, the cause of making mixed modes, why words in one language have none answering in another, and languages change, mixed modes where they exist, how we get the ideas of mixed modes, motion, thinking, and power have been most modified. Several words seeming to signify action signify but the effect. Mixed modes made also of other ideas. Chapter 23 of the complex ideas of substances. Ideas of substances how made, our idea of substance in general. Of the sorts of substances, no clear ideas of substance in general. As clear an idea of spirit as body, perverse a great part of our complex ideas of substances, or maybe that says powers. Power is a great part of our complex ideas of substances, and why. 3 sorts of ideas make our complex ones of substances. The new secondary qualities of bodies would disappear if we could discover the primary ones of their minute parts. Our faculties of discourse, of discovery suited to our state, conjecture about spirits, complex ideas of substances, idea of spiritual substances as clear as of bodily substances, no idea of abstract substance, the cohesion of solid parts and impulse, the primary ideas of body, thinking and motivity, the primary ideas of spirit, spirits capable of motion, idea of soul and body compared, cohesion of solid parts in body as hard to be conceived as thinking in a soul, communication of motion by impulse or by thought equally intelligible, ideas of body and spirit compared. The notion of spirit involves no more difficulty in it than that of body. We know nothing beyond our simple ideas, idea of God, no ideas in our complex one of spirits, but those got from sensation or reflection, recapitulation. We've been doing a lot of that lately. Chapter 34, or 24, I should say. One idea made by the power, it's of collective ideas of substance. One idea made by the power of composing in the mind all artificial things are collective ideas. Chapter 25 of relation. Relation what? Relations without correlative terms, not easily perceived. Some seemingly absolute terms contain relations. Relation, different things from the things related. Change of relation may be without any change in the subject. Relation only betwixt 2 things, all things capable of relation. The ideas of relation clearer often than of the subjects related. Relations all terminate in simple ideas. Terms leading the mind beyond the subjects denominated are relative. Conclusion. Chapter 26 of cause and effect and other relations. Whence their ideas got, creation, generation, making, alteration, relations of time, relations of place and extension. Absolute terms often stand for relations. And I didn't know Locke was so lyrical. We've gotten to chapter 27 of identity and diversity, wherein identity consists, identity of substance, identity of modes, principium individuationis, identity of vegetables, identity Identity of vegetables. Yeah, cucumbers. Cucumber identity. Identity of animals. Identity of man. Identity suited to the idea. Same man. Personal identity. Consciousness makes personal identity. Personal identity change of substances. Whether in the change of thinking substances, consciousness makes the same person. Self depends on consciousness. Object of reward and punishment. Difference between identity of man and person. Okay, now we're up to chapter 28 of other relations. Proportional, natural, is this instituted, moral good and evil, moral rules, laws, divine laws, the measure of sin and duty, civil law, the measure of crimes and innocence, philosophical law, the measure of virtue and vice, its enforcements, commendation and discredit. These three laws, the rules of moral good and evil, morality is the relation of actions to these rules. The denominations of actions often mislead us. Relations innumerable. All relations terminate in simple ideas. We have ordinarily as clear or clearer notions of the relation as of its foundation. The notion of the relation is the same whether the rule any action is compared to be true or false. Chapter 29 of clear and distinct, obscure and confused ideas. Ideas, some clear and some distinct, others obscure and confused. Clear and obscure, explained by sight. Causes of obscurity, distinct and confused. What? Objection. Confusion of ideas is in reference to their names, defaults which make confusion. First, complex ideas made up of too few simple ones. Secondly, or its simple ones jumbled disorderly together. Thirdly, or are mutable or undetermined. Confusion without reference to name, hardly conceivable. Confusion concerns always two ideas. Causes of confusion. Complex ideas may be distinct in one part and confused in another. This, if not heeded, causes confusion in our arguings. Instances in eternity. Divisibility of matter. Chapter 30. Real ideas are conformable to their archetypes. Real and fantastical ideas. Simple ideas all real. Complex ideas are voluntary combinations. Mixed modes made of consistent ideas are real. Ideas of substances are real when they agree with the existence of things. Chapter 31 of adequate and inadequate ideas. Adequate ideas are such as perfectly represent their archetypes. Simple ideas are all adequate. Modes are all adequate. Modes in reference to settled names may be inadequate. Ideas of substances as referred to real essences not adequate. Ideas of substances as collections of their qualities are all inadequate. Simple ideas extupa. What is this? This is some Greek here. It looks like the letter E, which is like a eh sound, I'm guessing. Or maybe it's a sigma. Maybe that's like a sigma, and that's a TU. I know that it's pi, so it's something tupa. Extupa is what it looks like. Simple ideas and adequate. Oh, geez, we have to figure out what this is. Is this Hebrew? What is this? I need to figure out what this is. Okay. Give me a second. I need to find what extupa. Locke. What does extupa mean? Extupa. Just tell me what extupa means. I'm pretty sure it's not extupa. I'm going to need some help for this one, for the extupa. Let's see where we're at in the chat at this point. I gotta look at some stuff here. I gotta look at some stuff. Oh boy, we got some stuff. You'll need the dinosaur, testosterone. They had fewer things to do than not Adderall. Nobles did math for fun. Yeah, that's me. I do math for fun. Came to your channel because I saw the book club was subscribed. Good luck. Thank you, and thank you to the book club. My love for him is genuine, and that's something that upsets me. Look, the whole cat boy thing. It's like, look, do we have to do this thing where we can where we can like people, we can admire people, maybe we can even love people. Does it all have to be about just, genital interactions and sexual and romantic? Does it all have to be that? I mean, that seems to be a tragic thing if everything has to be about that. So, I'm really not happy with the whole oh, look, it's two guys and they're laughing together and maybe they're buying clothing together. I mean, I think that's what nobles did back in the day. I think nobles, they went to the shop in London, or they went to the tailor, and they would laugh, and they would be giddy and such, and they would be joyous, And I'm just gonna say that. Let's move on. We've got, could you train yourself to get on Locke level? Universal consent. Have you even read Locke? Do we think Sargon actually read this? To recapture our focused potential, we'll have to seclude ourselves in unplugged faraway forest cabins with naught but fire and crawling bugs for entertainment. I just got way too much sleep. I think we should read Kant. Yeah, maybe we should read Kant. Just unplugging from distractions would be sufficient. I really doubt that would be enough. Modern people need total detox, like music, internet, entertainment, the God pill. You can go into the woods, but the abyss follows you there. Are we still reading the chapters? We're still reading the chapters. No one is going to the woods. Ken really spending his last fleeting. Yeah, I have like 2 minutes left before I'm supposed to go. The alarm's gonna go off pretty soon. I gotta get ready. I gotta get out of here pretty soon. The woods are fun. Why not go there temporarily? I punish myself with low-octane entertainment to save myself from overstimulation. Active asceticism. Ken streams. We're up to 21 views and 10 likes, so it's going good. This is what the people want. Attraction and its essentialism. Plebs are inclined to bad taste like overstimulation. Locke be like, I'm about to go blanky mode. Yeah, Locke was on nofap, no lie. What if, I don't think Rousseau was though. I think Rousseau had a problem. What if you pass the aux cord to the baby in the womb? Imagine reading the contents. This is just autistic abstraction. He's probably going to end the stream when he's done with the contents. Yeah, because I got to go. I don't have, I know a lot of people think that I just like kind of sit around all day and I'm just here to stream 24/7. But I got to go. I'm going to try to blitz through these comments and we'll be back eventually. We might have time later today. I got to do something important. And then we'll see if we can skedaddle back. See if we do any exercise today. It's kind of, this is taking up all my discipline right now. So the idea of me also exercising, that's going to be a tough one. Science of lingerie is the tease of it, how it reveals, but only partly or mostly the female form. This generates anticipation, drives the appetite wild to have its object close, but not yet grasped. Well, my point about lingerie is not the fact that it's frilly. I should say frilly clothing. So what would you say about frilly clothing? What's the deal? I seriously have to go, but I have to. I'm gonna finish the comments and we're gonna leave. I'm gonna jet out of here. Okay, have you read Locke's content, Space and Time, Attributes? Would Locke be a waiter? Extreme Learning, Take an L. Unfortunately, the pharmacology of cannabis was unknown to Locke, such that he couldn't conceive of the fourth dimension. Let's expand our attention span by reading Locke. What? Power. What? Beyond good and evil lies. I am what? Is Kenneth Brown. What? You won't finish the book because you're weak. Kenneth can finish raw onions, but not books. Sad. Every raw onion is a book. A book mukbang. When? Buckabang. If you don't do a minimum 5-hour stream of reading this book, I will lose respect. I'm sorry, I gotta go. I told you at the beginning. 24-hour stream. Finish the book in one stream. Ebonic Locke of mixed modes. Say what? Think about which you'll be the first internet honest to have read Locke. The absolute clout. At least he was thorough. You can't take away from him. As much as you want to clown him, we need eye tracker. This is cool and all, but have you read Loki? Read Ebonic Nietzsche yet? Speed reading. Lil Uzi Vert is Black Nietzsche. How fast can you read? Chapter 50 on ass, on its motion. Pog, what? On modes of appearance. On buoyancy, this is torture. Of water, it's magnificent. On water, its beneficent influence upon the human body. Chapter 51 of xenoestrogens. To be fair, the style with many subsections was quite commonplace back in the day. It's pretty useful in the time before PDFs and text search. Stop bullying Locke, guys. Contents. Locke went in over his head. It's commonplace mathematic text. This is the first time I saw the approach applied to philosophy. I hit Locke with the soft stuff. Locke needed an editor. Oh. Of Epstein 53, why his killing himself be unlikely? I'm sorry, that's too funny. Killing himself. I can't read that one. Chapter 69. Not gonna read that. Okay, okay, that was bad. Hiring an editor of ethics. Okay, I'm sorry. It's too funny. Kev likes to torture himself. Tau, epsilon, chi, tau, iota, pi, alpha. What does that mean? Tau, iota, pow. I don't know what that means, dude. I still don't understand what that Greek word means. If I don't have an answer by the time I come back, I'm going to be mad. Chat is way better than the book. I can't read that. Sex is the purpose of life. Pterosexuals, don't know what that is. Mannerbund is sacred. Platonic love. You picked up a shift. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. If Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers? Peter Piper picked. Okay, I'm gone. I'm not waiting for anyone to say goodbye. I gotta wipe the tears from my eyes. That was a tongue twister, folks. And we're 3 minutes late for a very important thing that I have to go do. But I'll be done in probably a few hours. We might do some exercising of the body. We might not. We'll see. And then we might be back or we might not be back. But you know what? I like the challenges. I like people saying I'm weak if I don't finish Locke. It's true. If I don't finish this 900-page book, I am a weak. It's actually 427 pages, so not that bad. But if you want to know what the Greek letters mean, go to the index page in the book. Post the link text for us. Okay, well, I will post the link text. If you guys want to read along, feel free to do so. This is Google Books. Actually, I'm going to have to split the link into 2 parts. Baby. Okay, because the link text is too long. So that's the first part of the link. That's the second part. Oh, even that is too long. Oh, geez, even that is too long. Okay, so that is the Google Books link in 3 parts. Anyway, just just search for Locke. You're gonna find it's like the first thing. Google Books. Come on. All right, Brofist. See ya. Bye-bye.